Hello and welcome to this February 26, 2022. It is a Saturday and I am your host, Gray. Welcome to another episode of Misfits of the Galaxy. This is a vlog series where I try to put my thoughts and ideas together in a format that I can easily digest later on to create a campaign setting for my fellow players of the Isle of Misfit Rolls podcast. If you haven't heard of us before, we are a D&D podcast group that have been playing for, I think, close to 4 years together now. Been a while. Anyways, we went through our first season in a campaign world called Vertes, made by our DM Mike. It was fantastic. And now we're jumping into our second season. This upcoming week on Tuesday, actually, as well, we're transitioning over to a Twitch live stream format. So if you want to check it all out, I'll put the links down below. We'll be having the Twitch live stream about, I'd say, 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. This upcoming Tuesday. We'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe or just jump right in and just take a look. I know that two of the players, Adam and Jake, as well as our DM Mike, have been putting together a recap for people who either have forgot what happened in season one or just want to jump into season two right away. So if you want to do that, it should be already posted online, and feel free to check it out. We really appreciate it. Anyways, back to this. As I said before, I'm putting together this because, like all good things, a D&D campaign eventually comes to an end. And in this case, when the Isle of Misfit Rolls campaign story arc finally comes to an end, we have to ask ourselves, well, what are we going to do next? I'd like to have something in the sitting in the works, so that can easily be picked up and jumped right into if people want to. If they want to take a break, that's cool too. I just want to leave that option there for them, in a manner of speaking. And while initially this was going to be a surprise, I've been slowly introducing them, the other players and our Mike DM to this, and they seem pretty excited about what I'm putting together here. So I'm kind of glad about that. Any input is appreciated, though. So last week I was discussing the prospect. If I recall, I was discussing the Burned Legion, and I said that I might go into talking about the Cabal, which is another faction, and possibly the Avia-Ra. Well, I didn't get the Cabal, all my thoughts and ideas on the Cabal organized, so I'm going to put that on the back burner for now, and I'm going to focus on the Avia-Ra because I think they're really interesting. They're the other, I guess, high magic tech culture that is either in a constant Cold War or open warfare with the Elven Empire. So the Avia-Ra, there's two distinct details to the Avia-Ra. The first is there's the species and the culture. I'll start by addressing the culture. The Avia-Ra theocracy is multiple worlds all united by the religious belief in that all suns throughout the universe are gods, or more appropriately, they're all um, they're all part of one god. They're all avatars of a single sun god, and subsequently, their entire society is based upon the reverence and worship of the sun. In the Avia-Ra theocracy, it doesn't so much matter as to what species you are, just that you worship the sun as the primary deity. I'll go in a bit more details about that in a little bit. The Avia-Ra species, on the other hand, the best description I can give is they look very much like the gods of ancient Egypt, particularly the bird-headed gods. We are talking about muscular, strong-bodied individuals standing between 6 to 7 feet tall, with the heads of often raptors, although other birds are possible, but they're wingless. They come from a desert world where the god was both revered for giving and taking away life due to its harsh climate and what have you. And the species itself has been traveling the space lanes for almost as long as the elves. Therefore, their society is extremely advanced when it comes to magitech and other magical studies and the like. Although they primarily focus on divine magic rather than arcane magic like the elves do. So, the Avia-Ra themselves, like I said, they're tall, they're strong, they're muscular, they stand between 6 and 7 feet tall. They live for several centuries, so they're a little bit shorter lived than elves, but not by much. And as for their abilities, they have abilities very, very similar to that of the Aasimar, which are like descended from Celestials. Although the Avia-Ra's abilities are primarily focused towards illumination and light, and like burning away taint and evil and undead and what have you. So that's something to take a note of. As for the theocracy, the culture, what they have done is they have gone out into the universe, and when they encountered more primitive cultures, they indoctrinate them in the worship of the sun. Even if the society has its own set of gods already, what the Avia-Ra will do is they'll arrive, they'll offer the culture magical wonders that they cannot even dream of, and the like, and basically improve the quality of life in leaps and bounds. And if the society already has its own gods, it will not necessarily supplant them, but rather take whoever their sun god is, and slowly shift the people's way of thinking until the sun god is the primary deity in a polytheistic religion. So, for example, if we were going with like an ancient Greek pantheon, where Zeus is supposed to be the primary god, like the king of the gods, so they would take Apollo and they would slowly, quite over centuries, in fact, slowly shift the hierarchy of the pantheon until finally Apollo is sitting as the new king of the gods. Because they're such a long-lived race, they can take their time and they're extremely patient in changing people's way of thinking. They're in no rush, and it's their hopes and dreams of the theocracy is to slowly turn everyone in the universe into sun worshippers. Many many primitive cultures throughout the galaxy actually would have depictions of not just their revering a sun god, but depictions of various Avia-Ra who have been kind of like idolized as the messengers or lesser gods in said pantheon, um, to one extent or another. They are very proud people. And they are very arrogant and haughty. Aside from the missionaries that go out, missionaries have to be trained very specifically and very diplomatically to basically indoctrinate other cultures into their way of thinking. But when dealing with other species and cultures that are on the same level as them, they who are unwilling to convert to to the worshiping the sun, they can come off very arrogant and very condescending. It's like, why would you not worship the sun? Clearly, the sun is the most important god in the universe, sort of deal. Is their way of thinking. So, with that in mind, because the elves refuse to acknowledge the Avia-Ra's indoctrination within the borders of their empire, the two cultures have been at war for thousands of years. What typically ends up happening is they'll have this armed, bloody conflict for a few years, and then it would come to a stop as a peace treaty is kind of brokered, and there would be like a Cold War for an extended period of time as both sides begin to muster additional military forces and the like on their borders. And then what will end up happening is another war will break out, and so forth. In many cases, the elves, up to a certain extent, have been able to thwart the machinations of the Avia-Ra, who are very expansionistic, obviously. In the most recent conflict, however, the Avia-Ra got the upper hand on the elves, who had to broker a deal with another species called the Vect to basically survive and win against the Avia-Ra. Needless to say, neither side has been able to eliminate the other. The primary homeworld of the Avia-Ra that is kind of like disappeared into the annals of history somewhere. They have no interest in like proclaiming one world in particular their home world, or nor do they have any interest in promoting a single world as their capital. Instead, the Citadel of the Sun is considered to be the center of the Avia-Ra theocracy. The Citadel of the Sun is a space station that orbits around the largest solar body in the galaxy, which is actually at the center of the galaxy itself. This sun of this unfathomable size that is actually situated uh, almost right next to a black hole. The two of them, the gravitational pull of the two of them, kind of like keep one another in balance. And as for the Avia-Ra, they created this. Well, they say they created it, but the reality of the matter is there's a story behind that. The Citadel of the Sun of it, that perhaps I'll share another time. There is a space station orbiting this massive space station, very much the size of a capital city, if not larger, that orbits this enormous sun. And the Avia-Ra, basically, they're the heads of their government, the heads of their theocracy, the heads of all their religions. They all live there, or they all like work there, and it is a place of pilgrimage where anyone who is part of the Avia-Ra theocracy eventually wants to go there on a pilgrimage so that they can praise the sun, which they think like the sun at the center of the universe is actually all other suns are avatars of this one sun, which is like the primary sun god, or whatever you want to call it. I know I'm rambling a bit, and I am sorry about that. So, as I said before, when it comes to other races, they don't really. The Avia-Ra are not that biased for races that are willing to join the theocracy. It's like they're rather welcoming when it comes to bringing newcomers into the fold, so long as they are willing to worship the sun and adhere to the tenets and beliefs of the theocracy. the tenets and beliefs are rather strict and stringent, to say the very least. And uh, some people might find themselves kind of like tearing at the yoke, in a manner of speaking, not wanting to be restricted in such a fashion by being part of the theocracy. And for those, they think them as fools and who need to be re-educated. So there are a lot of re-education centers, aka penal colonies, within the theocracy, where they imprison those who ne'er-do-wells who refuse to adhere to the tenets and beliefs of the theocracy. One of the things I've been thinking, most of this information is actually gleaned from the Dark Matter campaign setting made by Mage Hand Press, formerly known as Middle Finger Vecna. I'll put the links down below for that. What I'm thinking of doing is I'm like stuff concerning the Aasimar specifically, because as I described earlier, the Avia-Ra are their abilities in that are very similar to that of the Aasimar species or race or species of D&D. So I'm wondering how the two species would interact with one another. I'm kind of thinking that the Avia-Ra think that the Aasimar are blessed by the sun god and subsequently hold them in high esteem, but they also hold them to a higher standard and expect them to join the theocracy, and those that are unwilling are clearly um, have fallen from grace and need to be either re-educated or exterminated, in a manner of speaking, because for the Avia-Ra, the most blasphemous thing that can happen is for someone to turn away from the grace of the sun. It's one thing to be ignorant of it, it's another thing entirely to turn away from it, per se. Which is why amongst their species, they purposely hunt down members of the Avia-Ra species who have turned away from the theocracy. They refuse to admit that their way of thinking may be challenged in some way or another. I suppose that's also one of the reasons why they're so hostile towards the Elven Empire. So yeah, I'm definitely going to instill something in there about like how they expect all like they try when they encounter an Aasimar, they try to immediately, if the Aasimar is not aware of the beliefs and tenets of the theocracy, they try to immediately indoctrinate them, and those that don't want to be indoctrinated, the Avia-Ra turn quite hostile towards. I'm thinking that they might be one of the, I guess, villains, like at least delusional villains of the Misfits of the Galaxy campaign setting. In fact, I'm thinking that maybe, while not the original character, there may be a Syndrax amongst them, like perhaps a half elven, half celestial Aasimar named Syndrax, who is a avid worshipper of the sun and the Avia-Ra theocracy, who has been elevated to a higher position within the clergy. I like putting these sort of this kind of looks the same but isn't sort of deal into these campaigns. These sorts of tips of the hats and polite nods and very strong similarities. I'd love to hear what the people I've introduced to this vlog series thinks about that idea. Not to mention the fact anyone who just stumbled across this and what have you and is listening. You guys are my heroes, because like honestly, like I haven't tried to advertise this that much or anything like that, and so any input you guys can give is fantastic. Anyways, as I said, I've rambled enough for today. I think it's going on 20 minutes at this point. I know I stumbled a little. I'm still trying to get. So this is like what, episode 8 or 9. I'm still trying to get like everything to fit right and what have you. The one thing that's fortuitous this time around is I have improved the lighting situation, as I discussed in a previous episode. I was running into a lighting situation with both just the Twitch live stream as well as this. I've managed to rectify it. It seems to be working great. Still want to fix the microphone, headset, possibly even the camera. If anyone's got any ideas as to what I should invest in next to improve my the quality of my setup, I'd love to hear that. Any thoughts or ideas as to what people want to hear about next, or what I should be discussing next, or ideas that I might want to incorporate into what I've already rambled about, or maybe somebody says, you know what, this isn't a great idea, you might want to scrap it. I appreciate criticism, and I might actually follow through with your ideas and advice. But that's enough rambling for today. I guess thank you all for listening to me ramble for over 20 minutes. And till next time, may all your 20s come out at critical. Take care.